Anyway, we're now going to get back to the Tim Pool Sam Seder debate. While I go pee really quickly, and then we'll move on to some more news. Obviously, we have Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump tapes, which I think are crazy, and a lot more to cover today. So
companies, politicians will use some kind of special interest, and you can run an ad for any product you want, which is the crazy thing.
Well, yeah, this is what Trump is doing with his watches, right? Like, I'm going to sell 147 watches at whatever it was, 10 grand a pop. And it's basically a way for people to launder money to him, because it's like, all right, I just bought a watch, and that's basically it. And so he knows
you're allowed to buy watches.
Maybe
we should regulate politicians selling products during elections.
I think that would be a great idea, and maybe while they're president as well. But I know
I bought his shoes.
What's that?
I bought his shoes. We were skating in them. Let's talk about like abortion or something. I don't know. Or Israel.
We can talk about Israel if you want. I mean, I'm of the mind of, what we're doing is obscene, and I'm unhappy about it. And I feel like we have two options. One is horrible, and the other one's worse.
I agree.
In terms of these governments. I mean,
do you think we should cut off funding, pull out, and just be done with it?
Well, I think that we should condition aid to Israel. I mean, I think that we should, if we have leverage in any type of situation, we should exercise that leverage. In terms of Ukraine, we had a treaty with them when they gave up nukes in '93, saying that we would protect them in the event of
was it a treaty?
Russian aggression? Well, or an agreement.
Right, and the legal distinction matters, I suppose, because.
Well, I mean, it matters in terms of like how perhaps
bilateral security agreement.
I mean, that's you can refer to it as just a bilateral security agreement, and I think that there's.
Oh no, it wasn't even that. The Budapest Memorandum.
I mean, I think that this was operational. It's not obviously a treaty. Treaties can be broken. We saw that with Paris Accords, and well, it's easier obviously if it's a treaty. It needs to be we need to bring the Senate in, but I am I think that aid that we provide for Ukraine should have an exit strategy to it. I haven't seen one, but I also am not convinced that that's been a function of the election.
Haven't we spent more on Ukraine in the past 2 years than we have on Israel in 50?
I don't know.
Comparable?
Probably comparable, I think, at this point.
That's crazy to me. And it's fair to point out, too, like, we're not just giving all the money overseas. We make weapons here, and then it has American
100%
jobs.
Yes, 100%.
Wow, Tim Pool's analysis on Ukraine is the greatest threat to mankind has changed quite dramatically. That's weird. I wonder if something significant happened since the last time I watched Tim Pool when he said those words to now he sees a silver lining in the weapons transfers to Ukraine and its impact on the American economy even. What a shocking change of events. Probably nothing happened, right? Like nothing consequential happened in Tim Pool's life, I think, that would have caused them to take this different approach. Like he's starting to come across to me like a real Lindsey Graham type. I haven't been keeping up with Tim Pool. Is there a reason? Because like the last time I saw him, he had such good ideas on Ukraine being the enemy of not only America but the mankind. Seems to me he's seeing the silver lining here.
There's no doubt in my mind that we spend far too much money. So much of our economy is dependent. Eisenhower said, beware the military industrial complex, and his original wording was the congressional military industrial complex, and I subscribe to that. I do think from a moral standpoint, although I don't think this is controlling, but as a moral standpoint, obviously like one country is being invaded and to some extent occupied, and the other is occupying, and completely asymmetrical type of situation, that we have in Israel is just absurd.
I kind of feel like no matter what course we take, the dominoes have been knocked over. The BRICS nations are lining up for their currency. The petrodollar is on the verge of being dismantled. Saudi Arabia has already said not interested. I don't think Trump recovers that. And I think that means Americans better buckle up for a bumpy ride.
I mean, to be fair, you've also said that we're headed towards a civil war in this country so many, many times. And I don't think that's happening.
Well, that's not my opinion. That's just the corporate press. I think it was...
what?
It's not your opinion that we're headed into?
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I accidentally snorted a piece of chicken into my nose. That's not his opinion? I think Tim Pool has talked about a civil war being imminent more than anything else. Like, if there is one way to, like, summarize the most consistent talking point that Tim Pool has repeated over and over again, it is the fact that it's happening, and it's happening right now, and it's going to happen tomorrow, and it's happening yesterday.
To a civil war, or hasn't been?
It is not an original idea from Tim Pool that we're on track for a civil war.
Well, I mean, do either one of us have any original ideas? I mean, I didn't come up with single payer.
No, but I just to clarify, my position is I didn't one day just decide for no reason, oh man, I think a civil war is coming. It was like, here we go, Common Dreams. This is a progressive organization. Here you go. The second civil war has already begun. This is a progressive outlet, right? So when I read progressives, conservatives, The Atlantic,
I think that's more metaphorical. But if you want to claim that you did not mean that there was an actual civil war,
I do.
that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do think there's going to be a civil war?
10 years, 20 years? I mean, what?
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you like? So we can talk about it. We can go in great detail. For instance, we had a former CIA officer at the write for the Washington Post. The U.S. is on the verge of a civil war. I didn't just make it up. The Atlantic said that they spoke with several national security experts.
Well, there's people also saying that the Earth is flat, but
do they work for the Democratic establishment?
Well, sometimes maybe. I don't know.
Flat earthers in the Democratic Party at the top level.
I don't know.
Come on.
I'm saying
like former CIA comes out and says they're concerned, like we are following the trend of other countries towards civil war. I take that seriously. I don't know why I would dismiss like all of these people. A Princeton professor, for instance, said the same thing back in 2018, I think. So when you maybe it's sensationalism.
I think
that's fair.
I think to a certain extent it's like, yes, there were people who said like crime has increased exponentially, but in fact it hadn't. I mean, I think part of what you and I do is we make assessments as to what news is actually sort of like real and what really has real world.
Tim Pool looks at credentials and laughs at them. When it's like a person who's like, I've done vaccine research at the highest level, and I am a well-decorated epidemiologist, and I am warning you, we need to, take COVID seriously. He'd be like, that guy's gay. Obviously, you can't trust credentialed people like this. Tim Pool, when it's civil war, he's like, excuse me, high-level CIA officer who is managing the Civil War department said that it's happening. Yeah. Only when they're engaging in sensationalist rhetoric that they believe, that Tim Pool believes, then he's on board.
Implications for people, and part of what we do is assess that like these things don't, and it's a distraction.
I think you're wrong. I think there's an optimism and a normalcy bias, and the only thing I can really say is, look, I read the news and I opine on it, and I'm wrong about a lot. But I can probably pull up, I don't know, a couple hundred articles from CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, talking about the brink of civil war that is coming to this country that I just did not make up one day. So if I read the New York Times,
these are all right-wingers.
The New York Times,
Ross Douthat.
Oh, sure,
it's an opinion piece.
Yeah, of course. CNN, you've got Bruce Hoffman, Jacob Ware, Straight Arrow News. I don't know, but there's a poll saying people think we're on the verge of a civil war. The Princeton professor, progressive guy, said the Cold Civil War has already begun. This is back in 2018. And I look at all these things and I say, the worldview of each faction in the United States is divided to a degree that there seems to be no reconciliation. And so now what you have is sitting members of Congress calling for a national divorce, which means nothing. It means civil war. But that was Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean,
She's a lunatic.
Well, call it whatever you want. But when a member of Congress is saying something like this, would you?
Oh, I have no doubt. Listen,
do you think if lunatics get elected, we could see?
Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene also said Jews have space lasers, dude. To be fair, Tim Pool probably agrees with that too. So, like, she said Jewish space lasers were responsible for the fucking wildfires in California. She says a lot of shit, dude. Oh my God, I forgot. She also says that the government has a weather machine. Yeah. Oh God, she says so many insane shit.
See a civil war?
I have no doubt that we have a crop of right-wing Republican lawmakers who are completely nuts.
What about January 6th?
What about January 6th?
Do you think a January 6th type event could result in this country reaching civil war?
You mean had they been successful? And
let's kind of depoliticize it. Let's say January 6th, 2025, politician X wins. It could be whoever. I don't know. Let's say let's for the sake of your politics, let's say Trump loses, and then Trump supporters storm the Capitol once again. This time taking the.
Do you really think? Wait a second, because this is really an important distinction. Do you really think that the likelihood of a mass of Democrats, Democratic voters, would go in and attack the Capitol in the way that
you mean like they did on May 29th, 2020?
You're talking about like BLM?
When they firebombed the White House and forced the president to an emergency bunker and set fire to St. John's Church, injuring hundreds of police officers?
Oh, you're talking about the protests out there? You mean after there was a peaceful protest before the cops moved in?
Regardless of why it happened.
Well,
like, do I think the far left will firebomb the White House? They did 4 years ago.
Wait a second. One was an assault.
Dude, there's something so funny about the president at the time in his lame duck session refusing to follow regular process and creating an insurrection, albeit a very funny one, because it was the most like diabetic insurrection of all time. Comparing that to like mass protests all around the country that the Democratic Party actively was like renouncing at the time. Or, I mean, denouncing at the time. It's just like, I will forever fucking say January 6th was funny, because it was. Like, I understand why people are fearful of January 6th, because, like, if it was competent, if there was, like, a real brown shirt militia movement in this country, then that would have been, like, absolutely devastating. But in the absence of all of those things, like, and no, like, ideologically principled fascist movement, it's just all, like, you're never going to tell me that watching a bunch of HVAC business owners trying to climb up the fucking congressional wall and falling is the funniest thing you could have ever seen. It would have been better if the police were like actually there. You know what I mean? And then we could have seen like enforcement in real time. that probably would have made it so that it never happened. Like Ashley Babbitt would probably still be alive right now, running for like their fucking local comptroller of San Diego or some shit. If the actual cops were doing their fucking policing job. And by that I mean not what was I saying? Oh, the actual cops were, at the January 6th protest on the side of the protesters. I mean, like, if there were cops in uniform stopping the protests from coming in.
On the Capitol. The other is people. Well, words have meaning. They describe events.
When leftists injure 100 cops, tear down barricades, throw fire bombs at the White House.
Wait. But you're sequencing things differently. If Donald Trump was to send the military to attack, let's say, New York City, do I think that we would have a civil war? Yes. Do I think that New York City
Do you think he could? Do you think there's a possibility Trump would send the military into any one of these Democrat districts?
I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, he claims he would.
Do you think he would? Or do you fear he would?
I fear that he would attempt to do it, but I suspect...
You think he would try to start a civil war?
Well, I didn't say he would try and start a civil war, but
that
I think
would
he
start a civil war.
Well...
Or could.
I think it could, but
so
I don't
think there's a possibility civil war is facing the sound.
No. I don't think the military would allow for that, frankly.
National Guard, or it's like you think they would disobey Donald Trump?
I think you'd get a series of resignations. Possible, I guess, that at one point, but
someone eventually is going to say yes, right?
If your argument is that the rise of Donald Trump could bring about a civil war, I mean,
I don't know that I would say the rise of Donald Trump. I think Trump's a symptom. I think that the reason Trump gets elected is because you have this rage bubbling up in this country in a variety of ways. So you had the Tea Party and you had Occupy Wall Street, which were rather light. But then you get the Bernie Sanders movement, you get the Trump populist movement. But Trump is a bull, and he storms through and he takes the power. Bernie didn't.
But I mean, they're saying that it's because they're both populist movements? I mean, one's a right-wing authoritarian movement.
Call it whatever you want. People rose up and had movements for whatever reason. And perhaps you could say because Trump is a strong man, he ended up succeeding in his movement where Bernie's did not.
Well, I mean, no, Bernie Sanders was
like Hillary Clinton's the authoritarian, and she stomped out Bernie.
No, Hillary Clinton is not an authoritarian. I mean, I don't like her politics, but authoritarian it's a word. It means something. Yeah. And right-wing authoritarians. I mean, there's been, you could check out Bob Altemeyer's research, formerly from the University of Manitoba. Like there's clinical research that shows that we have like something like 25% of North America are right-wing authoritarians, and they're just looking for a leader. And the Republican Party has been stoking racial animus for decades now, and this is where the culmination. I mean, it certainly did, 200 years ago, but I think that the likelihood of civil war is low relative to the amount of times that you talk about it.
Well, I think it would require you to see what I talked about. Like, should I not opine on The Atlantic saying, quote, there's people that are absolutely ready to take on a civil war? What will happen if Trump loses from 1 week ago? If I address that and I say something like, I think it's silly to assume that within the next few months, people are going to start a civil war, is that a bad thing to do?
Dog, that's not how you opine on it. That's an opinion piece itself. You are literally pointing to that piece to say it's silly in the argument where you're trying to justify that it's not silly to say that a civil war is likely. Does Tim Pool hear the arguments that he's making? Am I misunderstanding him? Why has he so consistently, dunked on his own argument, it seems, or dunked on his own past behavior while simultaneously seemingly defending his own past behavior? I don't understand it.
Or should we just ignore it?
I mean, I think it's just indicative of what you consider the news is, and I think that's
Why are they all writing about it?
well, because they have the same problem that you did with your news outlet, is they can't get clicks.
Do you think the only reason all of these outlets, I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 that I just pulled up from a quick Google search, it's just they're getting clicks for it?
Yes.
I'm not, it's not a gotcha. I mean, literally, it's like, it's just sensational.
The answer is yes. Yes.
I mean, I think like, when you think about the original,
Like, I'm thinking from my own personal experience. I've been covering the news professionally for the past decade, and I can't recall a single time where I was like, a civil war is imminent. Like, maybe as a joke, as a meme, in a haha moment, but like never. Like, I often talk about how awful American politics is. Like, so frequently, so consistently. I talk about the dangers of like misinformation, the dangers of a right-wing reactionary sentiment in this country. And I don't think there's ever been a fucking moment where I'm like, yeah, civil war is imminent, dude. Like, I just don't. Like, the only way that it happens is if, we experience an unimaginable economic shock. And even then, I don't think it's that likely. And with no recovery measures whatsoever implemented. Like, it would mean the entire global economy has to collapse. There is a reason why January 6th was fucking goofy. There is a reason why January 6th was goofy as fuck. Because Americans are far too comfortable.
Civil War, there was a huge economic investment in on the two different sides, right? One side wanted free labor, and the other side, aside from having other economic interests too, that wasn't aligned with having free labor. I don't think we have that same division here. Does that
Do we
mean
need to follow 1861 or 54 for a civil war to happen, or is it possible to look at, say, the Bolsheviks, the Spanish Civil War, the French Revolution, the British Civil War?
I think it is unlikely in this country that we would have a civil war. Do I think that we could have sort of like a constitutional crisis with someone like Donald Trump and the Republican Party? Yes, I do.
So academics right now believe that we are in what's called civil strife. Civil strife does not guarantee civil war, but it is the precursor to. So the civil rights era was a period of civil strife that did not result in a civil war. Bleeding Kansas was civil strife that did result
in the 80s, we had something like 100 bombings, maybe 75 bombings that would, various
civil strife. It comes and goes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you've got Stephen Marsh, who wrote the book The Next Civil War. He's a liberal guy. He makes a lot of these predictions. I defer to him. I think he's wrong on a lot of his fact assessments in the granular scope of things, but he makes a lot of points that are correct. So we actually had this debate. I think it was it last week actually on civil war, conflict, and crisis. And one of the things I often bring up is people try and look at the 1861 Civil War as if we must follow that trend for civil war to occur, when in fact, it's rare that you actually get civil war in that.
What would you do to stop this civil war?
Tell people not to do it, to go out and vote, to believe in the system, to vote for who you think is going to help bring accountability to this country, denounce and reject
no difference
violence.
in terms of the parties as to which one could bring about that could bring about a civil war?
I think both parties hold the potential for it.
Do you think that like Kamala Harris would,
Takes two to tango.
Well, actually,
Oh my
it takes two
God.
to tango.
Oh
because
my
a tango
God,
is-
bro. I swear Republicans don't live on the same planet, dude. No. Kamala Harris is parading fucking Liz Cheney around and saying she's going to have a Republican in her fucking cabinet. Like, your brain has to be the size of a walnut to legitimately say it takes two to tango. Kamala Harris could very very well bring about a civil war just as likely as Donald Trump. Is like, dude, come on. Your brain is pudding. It's tapioca pudding. That is so insane. Democrats don't even have like a messaging campaign that is against Republican policies, let alone that they would like actively urge to fight Republicans in the fucking streets. They don't even fight them in debates, dude. They hug them and kiss them in debates.
It was a very intricate dance, but it doesn't take two people to start a war. I mean,
It does.
No, it doesn't. I mean,
What do you mean?
Well, it doesn't take two people to start a war.
So if country A invades country B, but country B just surrenders immediately, there's no war.
Well, obviously, people
War is a fight.
pushing. Yeah, I mean, I guess
it
in
could
that-
be more than two, like Syria, for instance. I think there was like 12 factions in the initial.
Well, Tango, both parties are like engaged in the dance. But the fact of the matter is, you can go in and yes, you can invade. It's war, even if they surrender after people getting shot. Do you think that like Kamala Harris? Let me put it this way: who's more likely to bring out the military against the city between Harris and Trump?
Trump didn't do it in 2020. I don't know if I have a good answer.
You don't have an opinion on this?
I don't.
Trump didn't do it. What the fuck are you talking about? Yes, he did. He did. He sent Bortak. Trump used the marshals, federal marshals, to assassinate a guy who killed a Nazi in Portland. And then he fucking flexed. He was like, yep, I told him, go kill this guy. And then they did. What are we talking about? Donald Trump, when Donald Trump says he's going to use the military against enemies from within, I believe it. I don't think that is him embellishing. I don't think that's him exaggerating at all. Why do I believe it? Because he's done basically everything but that in his last administration. That's the one thing that remains. And at the time, Senator Tom Cotton was advocating to do just that. So there are people in his coalition, in his corner, that also want him to do that. At the time, they wrote about it in the New York Times. Tom Cotton wrote an article, a guest column in the New York Times.
I don't know if I have a good enough answer to say.
Well, I'll take whatever answer you I mean, you don't
when
have
Trump
an opinion.
was presented with national riots, he did not invoke the Insurrection Act. He didn't send out the military. I'm not confident he has the strength, and I don't mean that in a positive way.
Who would be
like
more
the
inclined to
guts.
do it?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
You don't have an opinion on it.
I mean, I think it's
You're so disingenuous, Tim.
bait to be like Trump's the authoritarian, therefore he would, when he didn't do it. So the Democrats didn't do it at the Capitol. Trump didn't do it at the Capitol. Trump didn't do it in 2020. The National Guard was deployed by Democrats during the Ferguson riots. Could I make the argument that Democrats are more likely for that reason? I honestly have no idea.
Would you make that argument?
I wouldn't. I'd say there's pros and cons to make a guess as to who you think would be more likely to bring out the National Guard or invoke the Insurrection Act. Honestly, I don't know. What I will say is, it doesn't matter what you think is true. And
Mark Milley apparently, and I don't know.
Well, so-
Mark Milley is someone that you would trust, but he basically said that Trump told him to just shoot the rioters.
I mean, Hillary Clinton said, "We came, we saw, he died. Why don't you drone strike Julian Assange?" So Barack Obama killed Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki.
Wait. Yeah, no. I agree that Obama, those drone strikes were very problematic, but that's different than saying we're going
let's
to
not-
willy-nilly fire into protesters.
What I'm pointing out is that I'm not going to tell you your opinions are wrong and you should not have them. That's not the point of what I'm getting at with civil war. My point is you believe them, and you are allowed to believe them, and that's fine by me.
I'm just curious as to who you think. I mean,
don't
if you
trust
think
any
that
of
there's
these
The Emma Al-Awlaki conversation is so stupid because, one, that's a war crime. Okay, it is a unimaginable expansion of the powers of the presidency, and it was straightforward a war crime, an extrajudicious killing of an American citizen in the hands of the American state, which is what Obama did. The thing is, Donald Trump killed his sister. So what are you saying right now? Like everything that you could point to with respect to Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, who I actually, was it his daughter or his sister? No, Donald Trump killed the same person that Obama killed, his immediate family members. I think both are wrong. I think it's completely unacceptable. The difference between me and Tim is that he thinks it's acceptable. I guess he thinks it's acceptable or doesn't know that Trump did it.
Going to be a civil war or that there's a big potential for it. You don't see, there's no difference between Trump and Harris as to.
Trump assassinated. Yeah. Daughter of Anwar al-Awlaki reported killed in Yemen raid. Nawar Anwar al-Awlaki, the 8-year-old daughter of former al-Qaeda and the Arabian Peninsula leader Anwar al-Awlaki, was killed in a joint American UAE raid against the terror group on Sunday, according to the girl's family. Anwar al-Awlaki was a U.S.-born cleric who directed attacks against the U.S., was killed in a targeted drone strike in 2011. In that first drone strike, Barack Obama killed his son. Donald Trump then did another targeted strike where Donald Trump killed the daughter. I don't know why you guys thought I meant like Trump killed his own sister. I guess I said it stupidly. Anyway.
To the likelihood of a civil war or who would start this war. You don't, there's
in
just.
2020, Democrats held a war game as reported by the Boston Globe. Are you familiar with this? Where Podesta and others, neocons, had come together.
In 2020.
Before the 2020 election, they held a war game, as reported by the New York Times and the Boston Globe, where they said in the event the event Trump wins, we should advocate for West Coast states to secede from the Union.
In 2020?
Yes. In 2020, before the election took place, a war game was held by prominent neoconservatives and Democrats, including John Podesta.
Oh, so you mean like a bunch of people who are out of government went into a room and
working on the campaign and said, what happens if Trump wins? And one of the proposals was Washington, Oregon, and California must secede from the Union unless Trump's government capitulates to our demands.
This is one of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard in this conversation.
And that was just the most insane thing I'd ever heard.
They're not just going through a bunch of different people out of government are just going around. So your argument.
You say out of government, but campaigning for the office of the presidency is a big difference, right? Podesta is a big shot in the Democratic Party. It's not like he's not in power. These are private organizations, Republican or Democrat. The issue I'm saying is this. By all means, tell me I'm wrong, believe all of it. But
I just think it's fascinating you don't have an opinion on this.
Well, because I hear you, and
I mean, you have this knowledge that some Democrats who are out of power.
You keep saying that, but John Podesta is far from out of power.
Well, I mean, in 2020, he wasn't in the government.
He's a big shot in the Democratic Party, and he's basically has a lot of say in who gets to run and who doesn't, and where funding comes from.
Okay, he had power within the Democratic Party, but
he's saying if Trump wins, we will.
Well, wait, did Panetta say this, or this just there's like 14 different scenarios that are being gamed out, and because they're doing the war game, this is one of them that happens in this sort of completely hypothetical thing.
Why do you think they entertained the possibility of West Coast secession? Like, that's just stupid, isn't it?
Well, I mean,
it's a stupid thing for them to do.
I listen. Donald Trump had states competing over PPE during COVID. He completely abandoned this country at a time where there was.
The Transition Integrity Project was initially organized in late 2019 by Rosa Brooks, a law professor at Georgetown, former Pentagon senior official. Peaceful presidential transitions are seen as a hallmark of the Republican Party. Trump's own statements that fueled concerns about the peaceful transition of power. So they were trying to build a contingency plan specifically against Donald Trump. Like refusing to do a peaceful transition of power. Like, what could they do hypothetically? Like, they got together and they were like, what could we possibly do hypothetically to ensure that Donald Trump, does a peaceful transfer of power? Am I wrong? Isn't that what this is? Yeah, it's like, he's not wrong, dude. One of my D&D campaigns was a replay of the 2020 election, and it ended with all citizens being trans. These are also, most of these guys are right wing too, which is kind of funny. Like the people that, yeah, it was like Bill Kristol, Max Boot, David Frum. I wonder, like, yeah, we got a bunch of fucking neocons who were like genuinely terrified about the future of American democracy because it'll, take away their toy. Good thing most of those guys are now completely firmly within the Democratic Party and have captured the Democratic Party entirely. So,
was a once in a lifetime crisis. And
what if Trump steals the election?
To the extent that if Trump steals the election,
what do you think would happen?
What do you mean by steal?
Let's say that Kamala Harris wins the popular. Here's a scenario that's playing out right now. Mississippi had a lawsuit. Fifth Circuit Court ruled that ballots received after Election Day, even if postmarked before, are illegal to count. This would have to go to the Supreme Court for final adjudication. But one scenario that is potential because of this is that Donald Trump is winning on Election Day. However, mail-in votes have yet to be counted, of course. This is what happened in 2020. Then, when those votes come in, Republicans sue, going to the Supreme Court, which you believe is right-leaning, and the Supreme Court says...
Wait. I believe it's right-leaning?
Do
you not believe it's right-leaning?
I'm not making a point about my or your belief. I'm saying...
You said you believe it's right-leaning. Really? It's right-leaning.
And I will say, as you have stated, the court is right-leaning, okay?
Thank you.
So my point is this. If Kamala Harris is losing on Election Day, but it is perceived that she will win when mail-in ballots come in the following day, but the Republicans sue, citing the Fifth Circuit Court. It goes to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rules all of those votes for Kamala, which would give her the win, are out. Trump is now the president, despite losing the popular vote and the Electoral College. What do you think happens?
Well, we have a model for this. It was the year 2000, where all of the legal establishment was shocked that the Supreme Court intervened and prevented Florida from counting all the votes. And to the extent that we, past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but...
I saw that my uncles are fighting after this combo. It hurts my feelings.
The Democrats basically stood down.
Do you think Democrats would just stand down and let Trump come in?
I think I would be surprised if there weren't like a massive protests, and I think we would see states attempt to get more progressive and become more sustainable and not rely on the federal government as much. Yeah.
What if Trump sends in the military to start rounding up illegal immigrants?
Oh, I think that's going to be really, really ugly. In addition to being like a
you think
horrible
troops are putting people on buses and trains, the Democrats will just stand by and say this is fine?
I mean, if the Supreme Court basically says it's okay to deploy the military in the United States, I think that could be a problem. Now, you've just given me that scenario. Would you imagine Kamala Harris doing the same thing? Do you think that she would send the military to deport 11 million people?
No. She said she wants to recently. She said people who enter illegally will be quickly and immediately removed.
Oh, I was still on the political violence thing. I thought she did say that. Tim is right on this.
Moved. I think.
Well, of that 11 million people, 80% of them have been here for over 10 years. So, so how is it where you can so easily work up a scenario
where Donald Trump
instigates a civil war, but you can't with Kamala Harris? That you think they're the same?
Why did you say I couldn't?
All right, well, give me one.
So first of all, I don't really put a lot of weight on Kamala Harris. Right, she wasn't elected. The Democrats voted for her, so she was.
Well, I mean, it's either going to be her or Donald Trump as the president.
But so with Trump in office, Trump is screaming at the top of his lungs, telling people what to do. With Kamala in office, she's surrounded by intelligence officials, military officers, and what we've seen thus far is the arrest of lawyers. The arrest of
lawyers.
Donald Trump's lawyers were arrested
for.
What's her face?
Yeah, Donald Trump's lawyers have also literally distanced themselves from Donald Trump because they almost got caught. Is he talking about Sidney Powell? Please tell me you're not talking about Sidney Powell. That'd be pretty funny. Or Rudy Giuliani. Donald Trump's own personal lawyers in the classified documents with obstruction of justice case literally had to recuse themselves and actually stop being his lawyers because Donald Trump was trying to use them to hide documentation, to hide classified documents after the state had already figured out that he had classified documents, and he was just lying to them for no fucking reason. So this doesn't mean anything. It just means that like Donald Trump does often try to use his own fucking lawyers to do illegal shit, which of course there is a limitation to the attorney-client privilege. Like, you can't. Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, literally went to jail. You can't use your lawyers to do crime, dude. That doesn't mean that the state is wrong.
Jenna Ellis, was that her name? She got charged with RICO for simply being Trump's lawyer.
Really? That's a. Did it hold up in court?
She ended up, I think she pleaded guilty. She ended up crying on TV, apologizing for having done it.
Yeah, now she's like anti-Trump too, isn't she? Am I crazy? Wasn't I on a fucking panel with this lady? By the way, I just realized I've been in direct contact with not one, but two of Donald Trump's former lawyers that got into legal trouble because of their dealings with Donald Trump, which is wild. You know? Why does he have so many fucking lawyers that are constantly getting into legal trouble? He's burning through them.
They included her in RICO because she filed paperwork on Trump's behalf for his election claims.
Oh, because she knew they were false.
No, I don't think that was what she was charged with. She was charged with RICO counts 1 and 2, which was participating in
a conspiracy to defraud the United States.
And so the issue then becomes, if you're a lawyer and you are retained by someone who says, here's the argument I want to make, and you go, okay, then they criminally charge you for it. That's a huge step over the line.
Well, if you're involved in fraud, then yes, that's always been the case.
If you're not,
is this the first time that a lawyer has ever been subjected to something like that in a fraud case like that?
Not sure, but his other lawyers got charged too in Wisconsin. So it's you know what? By all means, Sam.
Wait. But
go ahead and tell him that she deserves it. Say she deserves it.
She deserves it.
Okay, now, what do you think Trump supporters will respond with when they see Trump's lawyers, former staffers, Navarro, Bannon being put in prison?
Certainly, supporters don't like, people being going to jail. But I mean,
why didn't Merrick Garland go to jail for contempt of Congress?
Why didn't?
Dude, what an insane fucking line of reasoning. Does Tim Pool not realize that a lawyer cannot legally participate in a crime? Does Tim Pool think that when you're a lawyer, that means you're like above the law? Does Tim Pool think that if you have a lawyer that you have retained, you can get them to do whatever you want and they have to agree to it, even if it's a direct crime? Did this motherfucker not watch Saul Goodman? Like, did he not watch Better Call Saul? You know what happens, right? Did you not watch the last season? Here's the fault with Sam's prior SCOTUS argument right there. And it's that SCOTUS can say what Trump is doing is unconstitutional. Trump can just do it anyway. And there's nothing anyone can do because it's within his official duties, citing national security concerns. If he starts rounding people up and deporting and offing them, there's nothing the system can do. No, that's not true. Attorney-client privilege? No, the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has given additional allowances to the president, but that doesn't mean that the president is like above prosecution no matter what. It just means that there is an additional safeguard for a president to do crimes and claim that it is a presidential act. That doesn't mean that a president could just like shoot someone in the head and then get away with it. There would still be you would still have to take it back up to the Supreme Court to be like, is this a presidential act or was this not a presidential act? Previously, you didn't have to make that assessment. You were like, that's illegal. You're going to jail. But the Supreme Court made it so that they were basically the final check against, if they want to, the final line of defense that determines whether or not if this is a prosecutable act or not. Anyway,
he go to jail for contempt of Congress?
Yeah.
What you mean from the Justice Department?
Yeah, the was it the her investigation or was it I'm getting the name wrong? He was held in contempt of Congress, I think, twice.
There's been a lot of people who've been held in contempt of Congress that haven't gone to prison.
So the issue right now is Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon go, and when Merrick Garland defies Congress, he does not.
I think government officials probably get away with this more because we had we had members of Congress who also.
That is a fine argument.
But wait.
It's a fine argument. But
we're getting off the original question was.
And the question is, do you think Trump supporters are going to accept this as true, that it's just government officials getting.
I don't know. I've seen Trump supporters believe a lot of very strange things, like John F. Kennedy is in the
I'm sure this has happened, but in recent history, I can't think of a single fucking Republican or Democrat or any like person that holds office that has ever been prosecuted in contempt of court for being in contempt of Congress. Like, I don't think has that happened like to a. I can't remember. I'm sure there might be, and I'm certain that it's probably happened throughout history, but I don't think that it's happened in recent times. Like, Steve Bannon is not a elected representative, chat, or even like an appointed person. Steve Bannon is a fucking random nut job. What do you mean, Steve Bannon? And also, we're talking about contempt of Congress. That's what Tim Pool brought up. Tim Pool brought up a contempt of Congress. Like, why is Merrick Garland not in prison for being in contempt of Congress? Like, as in not showing up to a congressional hearing.
Junior is in the audience.
That is, the magazine.
Yeah, I mean, so I have no idea how to predict. But again, the question I ask, do you think can you come up with a scenario where Harris instigates a civil war in the way that you talked about with Trump doing it?
The Harris administration, yes.
Okay. And let me hear it.
The expansive arrest and prosecution of Donald Trump, his supporters, and those associated with his movement.
Well, Bannon went.
I'm gonna say something controversial. I'm gonna say something controversial here and say that Tim Pool, I think, was able to successfully gish gallop his way out of giving Sam some good dunks. Like, I think Sam was too nice to him, and because of that, it just comes across as like a 3-hour conversation that I think if Tim like showed some more energy on instead of being nice, I think Sam would have fucking slammed him up and gummed up the works and packed him up in like 15 minutes. Keep watching. The energy flips at a point. Where does the energy flip?
This is going to come from the right. Verse.
Because they're still talking about this shit.
15% benefits. But it's not necessarily younger people are going to have to pay money.
New workers will have to.
No. They're always going to have to pay, hopefully, with Social Security, unless the Republicans have their ability to cut it. But you're
right. It actually says 83%. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would put some things to rest. I don't think they're going to do that. I mean,
Trump is saying it should be a state's issue, and I believe that is absolutely incorrect.
No, I think we had an individual right that existed in this country for 50 years, and it was rolled back. We've never had anything like that whatsoever. I think it's a right that when taken away, deprives people who have babies their sovereignty over their own body, and it's both an economic issue and a personal liberty issue.
What do you think there should be restrictions
on abortion?
Yeah.
I mean, the problem with restrictions, like for instance,
this is the normal response to this is no, but the optically best possible response to this is not a no, because when you say no to no, like when you say no to that question, I know a lot of women are going to get mad. But when you say no to that question, immediately you have to remember that like the fucking worst idiots will go, oh, you want to have a fun abortion on the last trimester. So you have to be careful in the way that you communicate. If your goal is to be, if your goal is to change the minds of a lot of people, okay, there is no such thing as a fun abortion, right? Like, people are not just voluntarily getting an abortion after carrying a pregnancy almost to term, because the process in which you carry a pregnancy is also very complicated and can cause a lot of harm to the carrier. Okay. So it makes no fucking sense for people to basically almost carry a pregnancy to term and then get an abortion for funsies in the last trimester. Republicans present it as though that is happening all the fucking time. So the answer to that is, when someone says no restrictions on abortion, the best optical answer is that these decisions should be left to the medical professionals and the medical community, and that the government should not intervene in this process. You do not have a say in whether or not people get insulin if they have diabetes. That is left to the doctors. So you should not have a say in this process as well, because the abortion, a medically induced miscarriage, an abortion is a medical procedure. Okay? That's it. So that is the best possible way to respond to it. And I'm sure Sam will do that as well.
Say only in the case of, let's say, a danger to a woman, or a woman's life, is that is extremely difficult to assess where that line is. And we've seen this. 2 women have died at least in Texas as a function of the abortion ban that they have there. We also know that infant mortality in the wake of the Texas thing, because there's been studies on this, increased 15% in the wake of the abortion ban there. So in general, I would say that restrictions are in practice not viable, not doable, because you end up costing women their lives. I think that to the extent that I would have restrictions, I think you need a medical provider to provide abortions, that go past the maybe midway through the second trimester.
Do you think that with elective abortion should be available up to 9 months?
If it is I think that is the safest route for women if it is done by a medical provider. Yeah.
Elective. I asked elective, to be clear.
Elective.
Meaning no reason given, no medical issues, just a woman saying, you know what, I've
carried this baby for 8.5 months and I've changed my mind.
Well, that's a little crass way of putting it. I think some women are going through some serious crises in their lives, and they may make a decision that's a bit more than just they've changed their mind. Like, for instance, where a woman is being battered by her husband, and then she realizes at month 6 that if she has this kid, he's going to continue to beat and harm the child, and she can't stay with him or something.
Well, I think, I'm not going to assess people's reasons for having an abortion. It's not really my business. But I think that having restrictions ends up.
But morally speaking, just because the innovation is now easily accessible and available, does it make the act right? Yes. In regards to the morality, just because innovation is improved to the point that it is easily accessible and possible, does it mean the act is right? Yes. Yes. The answer is absolutely yes. What do you mean? What is the counter argument against this? Moving with the times? What are you saying? I treat abortions, medically induced miscarriages, in the same exact way that I treat any other medical procedure. I think that the medical innovation in this field is completely and utterly irrelevant. And I think that this decision should be left to the healthcare professionals and the patient themselves. I'm saying that diabetes and abortion are 2 different things. I'm saying that that's not correct. It's up to you to tell me why it's a different thing. They are both medical procedures that save the life of the carrier. that save the life of the person, like it's medical intervention that professionals have decided is the appropriate response. Not only is it that in circumstances most things are allowed, so yeah, you're right. Wait, what? Okay, so what, you conceded? I don't understand. All right. I guess cool. I don't know what you're arguing against. You just said I'm right, I think.
Costing women's lives, and so I would, on balance, not have restrictions outside of, like, obviously, like, particularly as you get further into the pregnancy, requirements about medical, medical certified medical providers.
So let's say you have a scenario: a woman goes to a Planned Parenthood, 6 months pregnant, and she just says, "I don't want to explain it. I just would like to get an abortion." Is that a?
Can we leave diabetics out of this nonsense? Why? What are you scared that the Republicans are going to start fucking denying you insulin? No, I think it's a perfectly apt and appropriate fucking like analogy in this circumstance. It's just like a readily accepted, have been for years. Okay, fair. We're not talking about fucking lack of Medicare for all or how expensive insulin is. We're talking about like we're talking about straight up like one party deciding like insulin is unconscionable, insulin is ungodly.
She should be allowed. There should be just medical professionals who say, we're going to do it. We're not going to ask you why.
I think I think it's okay to.
Like the answer to this is there's already restrictions to third trimester abortions in almost every single state, and that is because it is a medically invasive procedure, and it's a risky procedure as a matter of fact, and that is precisely the reason why you can't just you can't do an over-the-counter third trimester abortion. There is a lot of visits to the doctor leading up to this decision. And it's ridiculous. It's no different than hormone replacement therapy. Like Republicans act like you can just walk to your nearest pharmacy and just be like, testosterone now, please, or estrogen now, please. And then they're like, oh, I'm too woke. I have to give it to you. Like, that's not how that works. You know what I mean? It's very stupid. You're just arguing against the reality that does not exist, right? Dude calling me conceited. Conceit, though you are well-spoken, don't get it twisted. Dude calling me conceited, arrogant. You can't just name call dick. No, dude, I said you conceded. I didn't say like concede, to concede. Like you agreed with me, so I don't know why we should argue any further. You said I am right. What the fuck? Dude, oh my God, my fucking haters, man. What is happening, bro? What is that? Open the schools. Open the schools. Abolish homeschooling. Open the schools. We need to leave children behind. Okay, the No Child Left Behind policy failed. Okay, we need to leave children behind. Like we need to keep them getting the education. Oh my God.
To explore it and get a sense, as you would for any type of like medical procedure.
What does that mean? Like,
I think that there's an obligation within the context of like ethical practice of medicine to
not just terminate a baby at 6 months without reason.
Well, no, I'm not saying that they should adjudicate this, but I don't think that like necessarily medical providers are going to be just like hop up here, we'll just do this right now. I mean, I think there are procedures in which they do it, but essentially, as long as it's like sort of like, they're following, medical procedures, Like, I don't think that somebody can, walk in here at 6 months and say to you, like, can you get rid of my baby? And you're allowed to do it.
No, but I'm just asking, like, should there be a time limit, like 16 weeks?
I think that is, that endangers women too much. So the answer is no. I don't believe so.
Yes. Any additional regulation or restriction brought about by the state endangers the life of the carrier that is making a oftentimes complicated medical decision with a medical provider. Okay? It's that simple. You are putting people's lives on the line for no fucking reason other than winning political brownie points with a tiny group of people that are very, very strong and overrepresented in the Republican Party's base of support. That's it. The overwhelming majority of Americans do not agree to this. So much so that state by state, they have refused to go along with these restrictions. They voted against these restrictions. They voted to preserve and protect at least Roe v. Wade in virtually every state where it's been on a ballot measure. Can speak from experience as the wife and I have been trying to have care after our miscarriage, and it's going on 2 months of doctor following laws and regulations. This was at 8 weeks and we still can't move on with our lives. Yeah. Being pro-life is the biggest virtue signaling group on the planet. Yeah, I mean, they're not pro-life. They're pro-forcing women to carry pregnancy is the term. They are anti-choice. They're not pro-life. They're anti-choice. Because if they were pro-life, there is a whole litany of different things that they'd be advocating for, like gun control, for example. Like, the average Republican is certainly not pro-life. They're pro-death more than they're pro-life. Let's be real. You got owned in the marketplace of delusion. It's true. I did.
So, but that would create a circumstance, be it as rare as, it may be, but where there's like an 8-month abortion.
It's conceivable.
But
I mean, certainly in the 8th or 9th month. I mean, here's the thing. In the 8th or 9th month, you can, you may find that.
Like, the overwhelming majority of third trimester abortions are being done, like damn near every single one are being done to people that have already chosen the fucking like baby crib. You know what I mean? To people that have already, to couples or to parents that have already like decided on a name for the child. This is a medical intervention. It is a medical necessity. Okay? And it is an invasive surgery. It is an invasive surgical procedure. Okay? 90% of abortions happen in the first trimester, and it's as uncomplicated as taking a pill. Okay? It's much simpler than you would think. But in the extreme rare instances of a third trimester abortion, I can't begin to explain to you how fucking rare this is. All right? This is a already psychologically traumatic experience because in virtually every single one of those cases, they want to carry the pregnancy to term. So you're basically shutting off or adding unnecessary complications to a family that have wanted to have the child, okay, and now can't have the child for one reason or another, usually some serious harm to the fucking carrier or it's like stillbirth or some shit like that. Okay. And they're trying to get this medical procedure. And now Republicans are like, sorry, we've decided like you can't do that. Okay. Now you're fucking killing the carrier. You're killing a woman. Okay. Why are they so obsessed with abortion? I'm from outside the U.S. Is it to make sure the white population does not reduce? I think a lot of it has to do with controlling what women can and can't do. I think it's like a way to try and like punish women into behaving in a more like tradcath way of life. Only have sex to procreate. Like, do not have recreational sex. That type of shit. America is very puritanical. That's what it is. Hold on. Isn't it weird we have to debate about whether certain medical practices should be allowed just based on vibes? Yes, it is weird. It is fucking weird. It's really, really weird to me, at least. Like, Randy draws a lot. Thank you for the 25, get the subs. I don't understand it. I think it is, to me, there is virtually no difference than like Republicans being like, oh, we've decided we're all Christian medicalists now. You know what I'm talking about? Like Christian scientists, Christian medicalists that believe that you need to pray every fucking ailment away. Like if you have an illness, you just pray it away. You can't do like real medical intervention. And they've just, like, if the 30% evangelical base within the Republican Party just like decided to lean in that direction, and then the Republican Party responded by nationalizing a Christian medicalist approach, and then started genuinely stopping the process of just like doctors operating. That is what this is. And it sounds fucking insane when I, make an analogy like this, but that is what's happening with abortion. That's what's happening with fucking trans care. Like, that's literally what is going on. It's all about enforcing a certain standard of life that 30% of the nation, many of which don't even fucking uphold themselves, but like 30% of the nation wants to enforce upon the rest of the country. And it's very, very insane. It's very conservative, it's very reactionary, it's very stupid, but it doesn't matter because, the Democrats have to concede the Republicans, and the Republicans love conceding to the most primal, most barbaric nature of the most active base of support. We are held hostage by some of the fucking craziest people in this country. Yeah, 0.02% of all abortions happen in the third trimester. That's 1 in 5,000. And in those final 13 weeks, it just becomes more and more rare because, like you said, at that point, the people want to carry the child to term. Yes.
The child is going to not be viable.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about elective. Like I'm specifically trying to ask about that.
But here's the danger, though. Like, and this is what I'm talking about. Why you have women who have died in Texas, and there's probably a lot more that we're not aware of, is that imposing these restrictions is not like there's no like bulb that shows up when you say this child is
One thing about Kamala is I will never believe a male politician really gives a fuck personally about abortion, but I do believe her. I mean, the most famous female politician that ran on this issue was Hillary Rodham Clinton, and her fucking statements were also far more conservative than the average person. Last time he spoke about this abortion, there was a group on Twitter that shared this information packet, and I thought it was really helpful too, just FYI. Okay, I'm not going to
100% not viable, or that your life is 100% not threatened. Like, where's the threshold? Is it at 20%? If the woman's life is in jeopardy, it's 20%. And this is, a vague, a doctor doesn't have like some meter that they put on the woman and say, oh, okay, your life is at 20%. No, these are vague determinations. And when you impose these type of restrictions on, what invariably happens is women die, because in real life, not hypothetical world, in real life, the doctors are afraid of crossing a threshold where they could get imprisoned, or they could lose their license, or, conceivably the woman might too. And so I leave it up to a doctor and the patient. I don't know what constitutes even elective. Like, is it elective if there's a 20% chance I'm going to die?
No.
That's not elective.
It's not elective.
What about 5%?
That's not elective.
What about 1%?
Wait, what? Okay, so Tim Pool wants unrestricted abortions because the likelihood that you will die while giving birth is higher than 5%.
Not elective.
Okay.
If it's, what's the percentage? Does he not realize that, oh my God, Tim Pool is so fucking devoid of pussy that he does not understand this? Like, dog, how have you never thought about this? Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. You just agreed with Sam that there is no, oh my God. Dog, he literally got someone pregnant before you. I impregnated half of this chat's mothers, okay? Calm down.
We know that
elective is usually used to describe
0.5%.
I've decided I don't want the baby anymore.
Because we know that, there's always a danger of a woman dying in childbirth. And it's above zero.
In 2022, the maternal mortality rate in the United States was 22.3 deaths per 100,000 live births. It's not 5%. Okay, well, now you're saying it's 33 deaths per 100,000 births. Okay. Okay, it's less than 1%. Well, still above zero. There you go. 33 was from 2021. 1 in 20 women dying from childbirth would be crazy, but above 0% is still a risk. Tim is still saying if it's above 0%, it's not elective. By the way, that doesn't even matter because the real point of contention here is not the risk of a carrier dying during childbirth. Because as we've stated time and time again, the risk is bodily harm to the carrier in the third trimester. Someone getting an elective abortion in the third trimester is not getting it because they want to have it for fun. They wanted to see what it would feel like to carry a pregnancy to term and then fucking abort the fetus.
So where?
Oh, come on.
No,
we're trying to be reasonable, right? We want to solve the problem. We don't want to just say, "Oh,
what's the problem?"
Geez. There are conservatives who believe that if the baby is for many, I don't even believe in IVF because even a fertilized embryo is life.
What's the problem? I understand.
I bet it feels good as fuck for at least a second. No, I don't think it does.
That there are religious people who don't like what I do, but what's the problem?
The death of a baby.
Well, I would contend that we're talking about the death of a fetus. And
so the issue is whether someone determines personhood or not is a legal constitutional question that needs to be answered. For instance, in Civil War, they didn't think black people were humans who had civil rights, and that's.
Oh my God, bro! See, this is like the vegan trope, Like immediately, it's like, well, we don't consider black people to be people during the period of the Civil War. What if it's the same thing for the fetuses?
It's clearly the psychotic way to view the world. But you holding the view that an unborn child is or is not an individual who holds a view, whether they are or not, is an unanswered question at the Supreme Court level that I believe sooner or later will be answered. And they may make a determination that.
No, it will not be. The moment that it's answered in the direction that Republicans want it to be answered, society collapses. What, we just like start offering fucking Social Security to fetuses in the womb? Like what? What if they don't make it? I think the other part of this story, and it's especially shocking to have this conversation in the aftermath of Roe v. Wade going away, is how you prosecute it. If you criminalize abortions, then what do? You have to criminalize pregnancy. You cannot criminalize abortion without criminalizing pregnancies. As in, you have to heavily regulate, heavily monitor every single person that's pregnant. You have to, for example, in this process, a pregnant mother that drinks a sip of wine, because you don't know how much wine they've consumed, is technically, in the eyes of the law, are they putting the fetus at risk? Are they putting the life at risk? If they are mowing the front lawn, should they get arrested? Ironic, of course, because the process in which you arrest someone physically and then forcibly detain them is quite traumatic, and therefore you're putting the fucking life at even more risk. What's next? You're going to fucking chain them to force them to carry the pregnancy to term in jail, chained up? You would need a team of prosecutors to fucking investigate every single miscarriage, which has happened, by the way, in this country. And the problem still remains. The fetus and its viability is left to the carrier. The fetus cannot live outside of the womb, especially up until the end of the second trimester, I believe, right? So what that means is that every single miscarriage, every single one has to be prosecuted like a death. Every single one. It's ridiculous. Small government, by the way. Small government conservatives, by the way.
That the unborn are persons who are.
What do you think?
Man, that's tough. I tend to be traditionally pro-choice. I think that when you have
then the argument is null and void. Okay, it's quite simple, I think.
Do you think there should be restrictions on abortion?
100%.
What should those restrictions be?
Time limit for sure, but I don't know. I'm not smart enough to give you a certain amount of time.
But here's the problem: is that when you in practice, that time limit ends up killing women.
Well, you've got a dying baby or a dying woman, and we're trying to figure out how to save them both.
Well, I mean,
So
one
restrictions
is
are if the baby can survive, why kill it?
So you're saying viability.
So viability is huge, and medical technology is rapidly expanding that. But there's still a lot of questions in how we handle it. So my position is that the government can't mandate one person provide their body to another person. However, if a person provides consent in the initial phase, now they have an obligation for a certain time period. So
if you have sex and you get pregnant, you are obligated to carry that baby to term. Is that what you're saying?
I think that I'd be in favor of abortion up to a certain point.
Well, but I don't understand what the logic is there.
Logic is compromise.
Oh, so this is just a question of splitting the baby in half, literally.
Not literally splitting the baby in half. It is, can the government tell someone you must provide your body and blood to another person?
And you say they can
So the
up to a certain point.
The questions of consent play a role in whether you allow someone and then have an obligation to them based on the requirement. So, for instance, like rape, I 100% exception. Health of the mother.
Okay.
Why? That's still a life. Why? Health of the mother, that's still a life. Why? If you believe that life begins at conception, and I can't tell if Tim believes that or not, but he's making an argument as though he does. So if it's at the point of viability, there's no... Because the rape exception is so stupid because that's not a real thing, okay? We already have untested rape kits. There's a massive backlog of untested rape kits in this country. But beyond that, the prosecutorial aspect would take so long, far longer than it takes to carry a pregnancy to fucking term. So if you were to leave it to the legal system to determine if a rape happened already or not, it's far too late at that point. You've already forced someone to carry a pregnancy to term. And also, if you personally are a firm, committed believer that life begins at conception, then it doesn't matter. You cannot argue for a rape exception. You can't. Because that's still a life. You're still killing someone. You're just saying like, oh, I guess some murders are valid. Is that what your argument is? And if you think some murders are valid, then why not make that exception to virtually every murder at any point, especially considering the viability of the pregnancy or the carrier's life?
100%
So let's take rape.
Yeah. The woman can choose.
Okay. What establishes rape?
When a person does not consent.
Okay.
Great. Sam is going to walk him through the long and convoluted legal process in which determining a rape would take far longer than carrying a pregnancy to term.
How rape is a criminal term, right?
Yes, indeed.
So you need to go through the court case.
Perhaps.
Well, I mean, perhaps.
Well,
Like, can I come in and say I was raped and that's it? All I need to do is say I was raped.
nope.
Okay. So you need to have a court case.
No, I didn't say that either. There would have to be some degree of
Well, you keep
adjudication.
telling me what you're not saying, but why don't you just say what you're saying? How do you
No,
establish?
you got to calm down.
No, well, how do you establish what if rape has taken place or not?
So there's rape kits, right? And we can check for abrasions, and a woman who was raped certainly would want to get a rape kit done, I'd imagine.
Well, okay. First of all,
but if you're
we
asking,
know for a fact
if you're asking
that a lot
for,
of, hold on. We know for a fact that a lot of women, don't seek rape kits for whatever reason, because they're afraid to. Okay, so if you don't get a rape kit,
we have responsibilities to ourselves and to others, and sometimes those choices are very difficult to make.
So just the existence of a rape kit will establish that rape has happened. Why do we need court cases to establish that rape has happened?
I didn't say we did. I said no.
Okay, so
a medical professional who assesses that a rape has occurred, I believe, is
what if they go in
largely
too many days after to get a rape kit?
And then there's no evidence of a rape taking place?
Yeah.
That would be a restriction.
Okay. So who makes that adjudication?
If a rape took place?
Yeah.
The person administering the rape kit. So
we would put rape kit people who are administering this and look at the evidence. And do you think it's just like completely binary? Do you think like, well, when you get a rape kit, like this person has definitely been raped or this person has definitely not been raped?
I think that we're dealing with something outside of the simplicity of I can go to court. It takes 6 months to a year to figure something out, which means there's a compromise. How can we come to the best determination to make sure that women are not lying, which I assume would be exceedingly rare, and we're actually going after the criminals? I do not think it's fair to put the burden on someone to perform an abortion without actually taking the responsibility of yourself and saying, look, victims have responsibilities, and it's unfortunate that they're victims, but we're trying our best.
So if you don't go, so let's say, for instance, like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever, and spent any time exploring the psychological and the sort of like social pressures on people to report rape. I mean, but you're basically saying that if you don't go and get a rape kit,
if you think that Tim Pool's statement about how rape victims have a responsibility, a duty to come out and like place the emphasis on the victim of this heinous crime is shocking, I urge you to revisit why this conversation is even taking place. It's not that crazy for Tim Pool to make that leap when the underlying premise of his argument is that he wants to create unnecessary hurdles that get in the way of women's bodily autonomy. And this is not me being like a pussy male feminist. Like, that's just straightforward. That is what it is. You have a disagreement that no medical professional agrees with. You have a disagreement with the entirety of the medical healthcare community, the entirety of like researchers, medical researchers, academics that believe that this is a necessary medical intervention, a normal process, as normal as fucking insulin for a diabetic patient. You just simply disagree, and therefore you think women should not be allowed to get this process. Okay? My point is, the argument placing the emphasis on the victim in the duty of a victim to come out, the duty of a victim of rape to come out and report it is coming from the exact same place of people having a callous conversation surrounding women's bodily autonomy. It's victim blaming, but it comes from the same place of misogynistic sentiment.
It's contingent upon the police department to assess this rape kit. If you go too late,
is that who's administering the rape kit?
Yeah.
Yeah, this was also a fun little moment. Even after the arrest of a suspect, YouTuber Tim Pool calls the story of Ohio child rape victim a hoax. So I don't think he cares about it that much.
It's not a doctor?
No, I mean, they may have medical things.
Well, I was talking about a doctor. She goes to the doctor. She says, I've been raped. They do a kit and they say, okay. And then she says, I would not want to have a pregnancy from this.
Now,
say,
do you honestly, like, do you know how this works? It's not like it's preponderance of the evidence. I mean, it's like, so you're basically saying the doctor gets to decide.
I am. You don't think doctors should be able to decide to give a woman an abortion?
No, I think doctors can decide. Well,
Yes, doctors make healthcare decisions. Doctors cannot determine in the aftermath of a rape occurring whether or not that was a rape that occurred or not. Like, what are you talking about? And before you say rape kits, that's not what we're talking about in this situation. What if someone's a victim of rape that comes out months later and didn't get a fucking rape kit done? You know what I mean? What do you do then? Is the doctor supposed to behave like a fucking prosecutor on top of everything else and determine with accuracy? No doctor is going to also get their license revoked. No doctor is going to get their fucking license revoked by making the wrong choice on a potential 50-50 chance that this person actually got raped or not. What if it's determined after the fact that it was not a rape? In the instance where you have criminalized it, but you at least have some medical exemptions for rape. It just doesn't make any sense. The legal argument is precisely the reason why I always talk about I always talk about how there is no reason to have a philosophical conversation surrounding the sentience of a fucking fetus. Okay? Like determining personhood and things like that. These philosophical decisions are utterly irrelevant when we are legislating. Okay? When you are writing laws, these philosophical back and forths are just nonsensical. It is not the real point of contention. Okay? And the moment that you are having these philosophical back and forths, okay, you've already lost the argument. That's precisely the reason why so many anti-abortion advocates try to draw you into that conversation. Question for Hasan. How would you go about talking to someone who when asked if they'd steal food for their children, say they just moved to a safer neighborhood? I try to genuinely talk to people who espouse hateful comments to change their minds, but I get so angry when people can't bring themselves to empathize. I mean, there's not much you can do for someone who's just like so fucking selfish. Get ready for hell. Your chat, I promise you, is going to swing on this.
I think doctors are responsible.
This is a compromise. I'm pro-choice, but I recognize that we're not going to live in a society where one side's demanding an extreme, the other side's demanding the other.
So you
extreme.
think the rule should be if
you are doing the same mistake they're doing, drawing into the toxic conversation, you're being part of the problem, shut the fuck up and change the topic. Wait, what? I'm a political commentator. I'm telling 35,000 people the best tactics and what to avoid in the like common trappings that reactionaries apply in an effort to distract. This is a very productive discussion. This is a very productive discussion for many people who might not have encountered this conversation or have ever thought about it. Maybe they find themselves in the throes of an argument. The fuck? Are you okay?
If you get a
doctor makes
rape kit, what if it's somebody?
We're
who's
talking
like,
about edge cases. I
if
mean, I
it's
don't know why you're
15
getting so much into the edge cases.
Well, I mean,
how often does this even happen?
how often do people go in and get an abortion at 8.5 months because
Many.
they feel like it?
That's my point.
Yeah, very, very few.
Right. So why are you bringing it up?
Well, because the people who you would create restrictions are going to cause
Exceedingly rare and not even an issue.
So then why would we have any restrictions whatsoever?
Because what do you mean? So that babies at 8 months don't have their lives ended?
Well, I mean, what if there are reasons for it?
That's then requiring adjudication. But it's so exceedingly rare. You're arguing an edge case for a dramatic change.
No, that's precisely why you don't legislate it, Tim. That's the whole point. That's the whole reason. Most states already have only medical exemption, and the ones that don't have it for this particular reason. You cannot get a fucking 8-month abortion that requires zero medical intervention, okay? That's not real. That is not a thing that happens. You have to go to a doctor. A doctor has to carry out this medical process. So legislating that away is idiotic because you have fantasized that women are fucking carrying a pregnancy for 8 months only to feel pregnant and then terminate that pregnancy at the end of the fucking 9-month period for fun. That is insane. What the fuck are we doing? He was so close to getting the point, it's infuriating. Never assume that a right-wing commentator who gets paid to be a right-wing commentator is actually close to any fucking point whatsoever. I do not. Just so you know. If you're having a normal conversation with a friend of yours, you can make that assessment personally, right? Some are shitheads, and that's one thing. But most people, most normal people, you can have a normal conversation with on this issue. But someone like Tim Pool, you're not going to have a normal conversation. The reason why Sam is having this conversation with Tim Pool is not to convince Tim Pool. It's to maybe change the minds of some people in Tim Pool's audience.
Change in policy.
But
I'm not. I'm
it's
saying
not a dramatic change in policy. There are, I think, like
it's kind of
10
wild that I'm
states.
like, women should be able to get abortions, but you're like, yes, but in these exceedingly rare circumstances, we should remove all restrictions because sometimes.
Excuse me. I think there's 10 states at least. I know you can look this up where there are no restrictions.
I agree. Yeah.
So it's not. This is not some type of like radical change of policy. It exists.
No, this is recent.
I even disagree with that statement because, like, even in that process, it's just left up to the professionals to make this determination. That's it. There is no way that you can physically get an abortion with a non-invasive procedure in the third trimester. Therefore, the reason why there are no restrictions whatsoever is because there are no restrictions whatsoever because specifically there can never be like there can never be a situation where you're just like taking a pill. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, it would be like asking the doctor to remove your appendix for fun. Not only is it super rare, but it's like a self-selecting process due to the severity and the complications of this medical intervention.
After the end of Roe v. Wade, these are the restrictions that these changes started happening across the board.
I mean, I can understand that.
You agree with those states removing restrictions?
Like I say, yes, because I think
that's not Roe v. Wade. That's the end of Roe v.
Oh, I said at least go back to Roe v. Wade.
Didn't Roe v. Wade have a provision on viability? It was an additional case that people don't bring up. That was in the 90s.
Casey.
Is that what it was? There was a question about viability and whether or not you can end the life.
The court said in Casey it just changed the date in which, I should say the week in which states could then begin to impose restrictions on that right to get an abortion.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think these type of restrictions end up killing
the overturning of Roe and Casey resulted in states removing restrictions.
Correct.
Are you saying that the doctor is the restricting factor and that prevents the scenario he has in his head about women getting abortions at 8 months for fun? Yes. I'm saying that the invasive nature of this procedure is an automatic restriction that stops. And the very fact that like carrying a pregnancy, okay, becoming pregnant and then carrying a fetus in your body for 8 months in and of itself is massively consequential. There are a litany of healthcare complications that occur in this process. So my point always is that there is no reason to ever legislate this stuff because who the fuck would carry it for fun just to get an abortion in the 8 months in the way that the Republicans present it? In virtually every single state that you can get a third trimester abortion, there are restrictions in terms of viability to the carrier, okay? And in the 10 states that Sam is pointing to, there are similar restrictions in the complications that come with the procedure itself. Like that being in the rule books or not doesn't change that dynamic. So there is no reason to legislate it whatsoever. Yeah, very few doctors are even trained to do abortions after 24 weeks, non-routine training for OBGYNs. A lot of this problem would be solved if these fucking demons that are on the anti-choice train were to just simply talk to a woman that they respect. Find a woman that they see as a full human being and also respect, so they could like explain to them the process. This isn't to say that there aren't dumbass fucking broads out there, okay, who are anti-choice themselves. It's not what I'm saying at all. But like even the dumbest woman on the planet who is fucking anti-choice still understands the complex nature of carrying a pregnancy to term and all of the complications that arise from that process. Okay?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
The overturning of Roe v. Wade created the legal precedents by which states could begin to remove restrictions.
No. They could. I think they could have done that prior to that. I think they could have done that prior to that.
So the question ultimately is, I'm not going to come down as the supreme judge and just say like it must be. You know, the right is wrong. I say, and I've told Republicans this: if I was a woman that got raped and you told me I had to have a baby, I'd blow my brains out. Like, there is no fucking way you will tell me that I'm going to, by force, without my consent, give my body to somebody
You are
else.
telling that that woman who got raped.
There is some
that
degree of responsibility.
You have to announce this. You
Yes.
need to follow certain procedures as a victim of a crime,
Yes.
and if you don't, we're going to force
Benign
you to carry
Burger,
that
thank you for the
child
20
to
gift the
term.
subs.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
There's a
Mate Feed
responsibility
Art
we have
and
as
Benign
victims of
Burger
crimes
with
as
another
well.
20 gift
And
the subs.
one of the problems we have in this country is that,
That's an interesting theory.
well, it's true, right? If you're a victim and you want accountability and justice, you
Well,
you have to go to court.
what if you make the determination that I don't want to go through what is involved with getting accountability and justice, but I also don't want to carry my rapist child? In that scenario, the woman is out of luck, according to you.
If you are not willing to take your responsibilities,
The responsibilities that
of victims.
that the rapist has imposed upon you.
indeed, yes.
Okay, so this is what do you call this? The Rapist in Power Act?
I suppose you'd say that liberals have a view that they have no responsibilities at all. That there is no
I don't feel
requirements.
like I have a responsibility. I certainly don't feel that if I was
you're not
someone
making
who
an
could be, I am making an
Well, the
argument.
Rapist Responsibility Act is an emotional nonsense.
No, it isn't. It's
We're talking about a person's responsibility to society.
that is exactly what you're
No,
suggesting
it's drama
is tantamount.
nonsense.
No, it's not drama
it's
nonsense.
prop clipping.
No, it is not.
Yes, you are. Come on,
Dude,
You're not
I
making
don't
an
give a
argument.
shit about
Make an argument. Don't say nonsense
The
words
argument
like rape.
is that what you are suggesting
Is
is
that-
that a woman who is raped has a responsibility that has been bestowed upon them by the rapist. The rapist has chosen you.
This is a.
If I shoot you in the face, I
calm
have
down.
caused you I have imparted upon you a responsibility. What you're talking about is fascistic. It is
Sam, do you think
disgusting.
that if someone commits a crime against
Why does it calm down? He's just making a fucking. I mean, you made an insane argument and you invoked an emotion out of Sam, who is not a fucking sociopath, immediately. And I think this is the least calm I've ever seen Sam, but still pretty fucking calm. I would have been losing my mind at this point.
you,
And so I'm sorry I said Rape Empowerment Act and tried to do it in a more satirical way. But what you're talking
your
about
logic
is
centers
disgusting.
are shutting down.
And listen, no.
You're getting
No.
overly emotional.
No, I'm not.
You are
You're-
not speaking logically anymore.
No. What you're
when
doing
a victim
is
of a crime, when
you
a person
are doing
is a
what
victim
you
of a
always
crime,
do.
they have
You're
to file
trying
paperwork to
pretend
get
like you can
accountability.
find something in here, but
You're
it
not
is
talking about the argument
absolutely
anymore.
Nonsense. Yes, it is.
You are no longer
I've now-
talking about the issue
because
nor the law.
everybody sees. Oh, I am
You are getting
definitely
overly
talking
emotional.
about it. I don't.
You're talking about my person. You're doing ad hominems.
no.
You've lost it.
Ad hominems, you've lost the argument. You've done an ad hominem. I can't stand motherfuckers like this, bro. You have done ad hominems. You have lost the argument. It's always the same. It's always the same shit too. It's like is always the same damn nonsense. This is no different than the Republicans being like, "Oh, you called me garbage? How dare you?" I can call you a pedophile. I can say that like entire subsects of the population are pedophile monsters and barbarians and rapists. But if you were to turn around and say, "Hey man, that's kind of a garbage thing to think. You kind of sound like a Nazi." They just turn around and go, "Whoa, hold on. How dare you?"
No. Here's
Sam,
the point.
let's start with the
You're
law.
so full of crap.
You see,
it's
here you go.
amazing.
You can't even make an argument anymore, can you?
I don't need to. Because
You don't need
everybody
to
who
make
has watched this,
arguments.
no. Everybody who's watched this knows that
watching you have an emotional
you're
breakdown on
saying that a rape victim has a responsibility that has been bestowed upon them by the rapist. It's gross. It's disgusting.
You are having an emotional breakdown right now.
I'm not having an.
Oh, dude, Republicans are so good at this shit. Where they've whipped their audience into submission, where they can openly just be like, even if Sam Seder in this circumstance is like objectively more emotional than he normally is, but still very cool, like relatively calm and collected, the Republican on the other side can just go, I've declared myself a winner by saying you are emotional. You are emotional. You are emotional. You are emotional. And then that's it. You mad? You mad? You mad? You just say that over and over again. And half the chat will be like, hell yeah, Tim's really cooking here. He is mad. We got him, boys.
Emotional breakdown right now.
Do you think the police
I'm getting
should be...
exercise
you want to wait?
because I'm thinking of my daughter.
Here we
and
go.
I'm thinking of my daughter.
Here it is.
And I'm thinking of the idea that a
Sam.
rapist could force her to do something
Sam,
that
you're spiraling.
No,
You're
I'm not
spiraling.
No.
You're spiraling.
Tim,
you're not even
afraid
stopping talking
because you just
you're not even
found
stopping
out
talking.
You never
you're gonna,
think
you're gonna,
out
you're gonna,
anything
you're gonna,
that you
we're going to
say,
say something.
and
We're
you're
going to
upset
talk, or are you going
that
to
I
keep just talking about
faced
nonsense?
you in front of all of your
Are you
audience.
going to wait for your prop
You
clipping?
rapist.
Your prop.
That's crazy. This is just, what the fuck did this turn into, man? I did not expect this to go this way. Holy moly, this shit is completely bricked. Completely bricked.
Prop clipping, Sam.
Act.
You're prop clipping.
I don't even know what that means.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. You're
What does
prop
it mean?
clipping again.
What is prop clipping?
You're not arguing abortion anymore.
What is prop clipping?
You said, Tim, you're full of crap. You're not arguing abortion anymore.
Because
you disgust me. Oh, rape, blah, blah. You stopped arguing.
Saying
You
that
stopped
a rapist-
arguing and you started doing performative garbage for the camera.
No, I'm
You
not
want to
doing
have a
performative
discussion, Sam?
Dude, the best
You wanna-
part of
do you
this
wanna have a discussion,
was
or are you gonna keep
tying
talking?
you in knots about
You
the
wanna have a
idea
discussion?
that a rapist can force a woman.
Here you go again.
to go in-
Here you go again. You're making things up.
I'm reiterating.
You're prop clipping.
I am reiterating.
You're prop clipping.
I am
Sam,
reiterating your
You're
position.
getting overly emotional. You're getting heated. You're finger pointing. You're throwing slurs and name calling. You're
What's
full
the
of-
slur?
Well, I forgive me. You're so full of crap. You disgust me. Blah. This
You-
is not an argument.
honestly,
You want to have a
I gotta be
discussion?
honest with you.
You want to have a discussion, or you're gonna have an emotional breakdown?
You know what? I am going to continue with the so-called emotional breakdown because honestly, I think
That's right, Sam.
No, I honestly.
Let's solve our problems by Sam
I
just
honestly-
freaking out and having emotional breakdowns on camera.
I honestly think that like
Come
what
on,
you
Sam.
do is so damn.
The reason why he's doing this, the reason why Tim's doing this is because he recognizes that he lost the argument. So he's just trying to like prime his audience into thinking that he actually has like some kind of victory here. When you lose the argument in its entirety, all you can do, when you lose the argument in its entirety, all you can fucking do is basically just say, oh, well, I got the other side to be emotional, therefore I won.
Damaging.
Oh no!
And this
here he goes.
whole notion that you,
Broke.
would allow
It took 2 hours
for
and 40
race-
minutes for you to break.
Yeah,
You
this
broke.
whole
Sam,
Why are you keeping me
broke.
from talking?
because you haven't
If
let
you
me talk
think
one
I'm-
time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Victims of crimes who want accountability have responsibilities.
What if they don't want accountability? What if they don't want to put themselves on the stand and have to point
And they
out
don't get
that
accountability.
guy? Okay, but they have to carry the baby, right? According to you,
If they don't want accountability, then this is
then they have to carry the baby.
This is reality.
Say it.
A woman.
Say it. If they
I will
don't
say it as
want
plainly
accountability,
as I can say
they
it
have to
100%.
carry that rapist baby.
If a woman does not want accountability for her rape, she will carry that baby.
She has to.
She has to. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Up to 15 weeks.
That's the prop clip I want right
up
there.
to 15 weeks.
I mean, I think we have come to an agreement.
That women can get abortions if they're so choosing without any restrictions up to a certain amount of time. And then after viability would have to.
They don't want to pursue their rapists in public in a public setting, and they don't want to go
never
through
said
that.
that. Sam, you're having an emotional breakdown. You've stopped listening to what's being said. You started getting angry, insulting. You're disgusting. How dare you? This is, and you know
You
what?
don't think
And
saying
Sam,
to
let
me
me tell
that
you,
you're prop clipping?
I
I don't know what that means, but
So it's when you stopped arguing abortion, finger pointing and waving your hands and saying, I tied you in knots in front of the camera.
yes.
And this is why people don't invite you on their show.
I don't give a shit.
I know.
I'll tell you something.
That's why you don't
This-
get invited on
No,
shows, because
I
you don't care.
care.
I know you don't care. I'm not
I
saying you
don't
do.
care. I honestly, like, this is...
You start the show, I don't want to talk politics. I want to talk about how you said mean things about me before.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to get that. Oh, wait.
Yeah,
no,
your
not mean
WWE
things.
politics.
No. Listen,
We're talking about how do we effectively have law on abortion. That should be a woman can do whatever she wants up to 15, 16 weeks, maybe even 22. I don't know what the time limit is. But if the baby is viable, there has to be accountability.
There's something really gross about like here. Let me explain to you why I fucking despise debates. This conversation itself is a perfect demonstration of it. The party that has absolutely nothing to lose will always be able to ridicule the party that at least has an emotional attachment to the subject matter. You can never expect, for example, a white supremacist to debate a black person because the black person's humanity is what is the subject matter. It is very obvious to me that while both are men in this process, Sam Seder clearly cares about the issue a lot more, places an understandable emotional attachment to the subject matter of women's bodily autonomy. If you are going up against someone who does not have that kind of understanding, who does not care about women at all, then they can always just sit there and be like, well, you're getting quite emotional. You're getting quite emotional. It's like, yeah, dude, it's a pretty fucked up thing that you're just callously advocating for. And you will never understand it. You will never understand it because you do not have the capacity to empathize with women. Straight up. It's such an irritating phenomena. I don't know how else to explain it. It's not by accident. There's so many of the fucking top dogs in the debate space are just usually white dudes, okay? It's because in a structure such as in Western nations, in the structure that we exist under, white dudes are, with some exceptions, like virtually untouchable. They're not considered. They're never like dehumanized in any serious way. And I say this as someone who also is a white man, right? I'm a cisgender, heterosexual white man. Okay, and even then, there is at least one avenue where people can actively just rob me of my humanity in every conversation. My name is Hasan, and I'm a Muslim, right? I'm white, but it still doesn't matter. That immediately goes away. All of the optical power, the privilege that I have, can so easily be cast aside. There's perhaps no better demonstration of this than the, Twitch streamer or terrorist shit that's been going on nonstop. There's no better demonstration of this than like all of the haha jokes and the active silencing campaign that these supposedly anti-cancel culture warriors have been engaging in for the past month or so. It's just, there's not really anything you could do in that situation. Like, people can just like immediately rob you of your humanity. And I'm telling you this, this is an overwhelmingly white male audience, okay? Even though many of you are gay as fuck. And I'm telling you this so that you can understand that this is a dynamic. If you care about people, even if you are a white man yourself, cisgender, heterosexual white man yourself, even if you are emotionally invested in uplifting marginalized communities, a person that does not care about the humanity of said communities will be able to always sit there and calmly, not dissect your arguments, mind you, but calmly piss you the fuck off. Okay? That's it. So these 1 to 3K streamers feel the same? What do you mean? Self-help equals stealing? Who are you talking to? What? In these sorts of conversations, you are what? You defined who you are? In this setting, in the environment of a debate stage, like becoming emotional or becoming passionate at all when you are defending the subject matter will be received by at least one side of the argument that has nothing to lose in this process as weakness. Okay? And it's a deeply frustrating equation, which is why I'm just explaining like the asymmetry of debate. You can always be portrayed as irrational because you got emotional in this process. And it's like, it's the most normal thing to feel. anger is the most normal thing to feel in this process. Okay?
None of what you're saying is meaningful at all.
That there should be a time restriction on
15, 22, you're just throwing around numbers.
because there's a debate on how long that duration should be. But my position is that pre-viability, I don't know, some say 22, some say 26.
And my addressing you is that the restrictions that you're pushing,
and you're disgusting and emotional breakdown.
Yeah. My emotional breakdown to you is that when you put these restrictions on women, they in practice are impossible to actually execute. And you have shown that by saying that if a woman refuses to go in front of a court,
I never said that. This is what I said, Sam. For the
if
love
they
of all that
doesn't
is
take
holy.
accountability, what does accountability mean?
A rape kit.
Okay, so if a rape kit,
You're saying I was raped with no proof and no evidence, and therefore I
they've
should be
got
able
to
to
go
terminate
in.
a 6-month
They've
baby.
got to go in within 24 to 36 hours and say to a doctor, "I was raped." And if they don't do that, then they're forced to carry the rapist baby.
Depending on what you want to happen in society, there are things you have to do. Sometimes you may not want to have to do them, but this idea you have that people, what you're proposing is that the state should be able to enforce crimes against people without evidence.
What?
You want accountability, but you do not want
I
to go
don't
through
want accountability.
No, he doesn't believe your rape exemption holds water due to the complicated nature of the legal process in which you determine rape to be, you determine whether a rape occurred or not. You are also placing the burden on the victim, who may, due to a litany of different pressures, including but not limited to societal pressure, might not be comfortable coming out and getting a fucking rape kit. But once again, this is compounding on top of like it's the exact same principle. It's just like misogyny compounding on top of one another. It's like the conversation starting point is like I do not recognize the humanity of the carrier as anything but a vessel to deliver a child. And therefore, I am going to have a conversation about what they can and can't do to their own bodies. And of course, if that's your worldview, then yeah, you are going to feel comfortable saying stuff like, yeah, a victim of rape, no matter what age, by the way, should have the responsibility to go and get a rape kit. Now, there's another world here where this does not need to happen. And that world is where there is no rape exemption because there is no exemption. Like, he placed this rape exemption in the conversation. Tim Pool did. That's Tim Pool's argument. And now he's making it seem like Sam is on board with this exemption. Sam is only following the logical, the train of logic, the chain of logic to try to get Tim Pool to understand that this would be an unnecessary complication, an unnecessary hurdle that would compound additional harm on top of the carrier, who is a victim of rape in this process.
I just don't want this woman to have to carry a rapist baby.
Right. So this is very 5th grade, right? There is a legal system that exists. We have to work within a legal system because we have compromises and a social contract with other people. The idea that I can take action against another person without proper adjudication is fascistic. What we have to do is figure out what are the terms for each individual circumstance.
Who's the other person you're talking about?
So we're the baby.
Oh, so you
At 6 months.
You consider a baby a person at 6 months.
Viability.
Let me ask you this. If
Well, I consider a baby a person the whole time.
a fetus, a person the whole
Life
time.
begins at conception. But the
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. No, you don't. Shut the fuck up. Okay, if life begins at conception, which, by the way, who says? Bro, you can't say, sorry, my argument, God, okay? You can't. Like, that's insane. That is such a fucking dumbass, backwards, barbaric way of operating, dude. What the fuck? Sorry, my source, Le Bible. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Even Ben knows not to make that argument, dude. What the fuck? Well, one, because he's an Orthodox Jew, and technically his religion does not say that. So there's that process. There's that problem for him. But the other reason why he doesn't make that argument, even though he's dick riding Christianity into fucking oblivion, is because he understands something that Tim does not, which is that most Americans, regardless of their, personal framework of religion, personal belief structure, still think that like making a legal argument and basing it off of a religious interpretation is fucking insane. This is not 1945 any longer. You cannot make this argument. It's fucking ridiculous. You can't just be like, yep, life begins at conception, and that's why this is what we have decided. This is what I've decided. This is why I will deny half of the fucking population its own goddamn rights. He thinks the baby is a person unless that baby is a woman. No. After the fetus is outside of the womb, it's over. Yeah. Republicans do not give a fuck, dude. Once the baby's out the pussy, it's like, oh, dude, give the baby a gun. Have the baby fend for itself. You know what I mean? They only care about it for the first 9 months, seemingly. What are you talking about? They do that 99% of the time? What do you mean? Yeah. Once the baby slides out of the fucking pussy, then it's time. It's time for the baby to pick up the goddamn bootstraps. Pick your boots up, baby. Pick your boots up. Buy your bootstraps. It's time. It's time to go out and fucking participate in the workforce. Put that goddamn baby in the military. Pay taxes, baby. Dumbass, stupid ass baby.
State doesn't.
Life begins at conception.
But yes. But the state doesn't
You
have
believe that in the context of immigration?
But the state doesn't have the authority to tell a person when they must give their body to another person. There's arguments over consent, in which case rape is an exception. However, I'm pro-choice.
Okay.
So you're saying you're pro-murder, like acceptable murders. And it's like, if we create a new legal process, a new legal metric of determining rape, then, you're fine to murder the fucking life. You don't believe life begins at conception if you're like, and some murders are fine.
So what we're talking about now, because, make sure you include this in the context, and I'm glad you're here, I can say it to you, is a woman up to pre-viability, in my opinion, should be allowed to get an abortion if she so chooses because of the impossibility of properly adjudicating anything in between. I think that's where, when I say you're having a breakdown, it's because I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying. After viability, we're talking about extenuating circumstances where a baby that could survive on its own. There's now an issue there where the question becomes, why kill the baby? If we're talking about a period where we're not sure the baby's viable or not, we're wondering why the woman carried the baby this long. The issue is not so black and white for you to just say.
Well, you're saying this is about viability, not time limit.
Yeah, I'm
You keep vacillating back and forth. Maybe you don't realize this, but there's completely.
If you can't understand, I'll explain
inconsistent
it to you.
With it.
What
saying.
week is viability?
What week is viability?
Yes.
I think there's some debate about that.
Agreed. My point is, I don't know the point at which we as a society will determine it's going to be 16 or 22 or 26. I'm not a scientist or a medical doctor. I agree. There's an issue where if the baby can survive on its own, there's no reason to kill it.
Well, would you be in favor of a woman getting a C-section in 4 or 5 months just because she doesn't want to carry the baby anymore?
If the baby can survive on its own, my position is typically the woman can make that choice, as long as the baby's not being killed. But, so...
What? Dude, okay. Tim Pool's technique is actually vicious. Okay? It's a new technique. It's called arguing every position at all times, both for and against. Okay? I think he's like issuing a smoke screen. Not even a smoke screen, a flashbang. He just says something and then says the exact opposite in the same 30-second window in an effort to basically confuse his interlocutor. Okay? He's like, yeah, what do you do with this? Like, that last thing that he just said makes no dang sense. He said he's not in favor of abortions if there's viability outside of the womb. That means it's a life. And then Sam directly asked him, okay, so if there's viability outside the womb at 4 to 5 months, do you think a woman should forcibly have a C-section? And he's like, in that situation, it's still, it's up to the woman to kill the baby after the C-section. Like, just let the normal legislation run its course, dog. What the fuck are we talking about?
If the baby can survive on its own, my position is typically the woman can make that choice, as long as the baby's not being killed.
What? What the fuck is that? What? He said all the positions. He said all the positions. He said all of it. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-life. I'm anti-abortion. I'm pro-abortion. Bro, look at his face. I don't think he knows what he's saying. He's like, damn, I can't believe I came up with that on the spot. He's just yapping. What is happening? Please, I'm going to run this back. Okay? I need you to understand.
Woman getting a C-section in 4 or 5 months just because she doesn't want to carry the baby anymore?
If the baby can survive on its own, my position is typically the woman can make that choice, as long as the baby's not being killed.
Maybe he's saying something brilliant and I just am too stupid to understand. I don't know. You know what? That's what I'm going to go with. He's just saying something that like my tiny brain can't comprehend.
But, so you know how they perform abortions after that point?
How they perform abortions after what?
Like there's varying degrees of how abortions are performed. So
yes.
the question I have is this. Let me put it this way.
Like dilation and extraction? Are you talking about in terms of
my position largely is we've got two real distinct worldviews on this one that are extreme ends. They neither agrees with each other.
No. Go back. Interrogate this. No, we need to examine what Tim Pool was saying right before he swapped the conversation back to like, oh, there's extremes on both sides. He's going back to comfortable territory. Okay. I need to examine Tim Pool's beanie. What does it mean? What the fuck was that? He said he's in favor. He said that a woman should be able to get a C-section and like forcibly extract the fetus as long as there's a viability outside the womb, but a woman can make the choice at that point as long as it doesn't kill the baby. What does that mean? He was trying to say that the woman can choose a C-section or carry to term, but the baby can't be killed. Oh, he's saying that like, yeah, you can carry the pregnancy to term or get a C-section to extract the fetus out. Okay, that is an incredibly invasive medical procedure. That's a more invasive medical procedure than the normal process of like dilution and extraction. So that's still insane. Yeah, we need to cut the woman and put a fucking 50-50 shot at the baby surviving the process. Yeah, sorry. I know we chopped your shit up, but like, you know, Tim Pool decided that that's the best way to go forward. Fuck the doctors on this, okay? I'm pro-choice, by the way. If she dies, she dies.
Trying to navigate in between to get people to be like, look, there's got to be some standard.
Dude, these are the ideas behind anti-abortion are primarily religious fundamentalism. And it is about maintaining a gender hierarchy. And the idea that you can negotiate, you're basically taking Hillary Clinton's position from 2004.
Probably.
And it doesn't work that way. The fundamentalists who are pushing this ideology, and it's largely fundamentalists, and if not directly, certainly downstream from a religious fundamentalism, they're not interested in your compromise. It is, and the proof of it is
Not interested in yours.
I'm not compromising. The proof of it is after 50 years, there was a compromise. It was Casey. Exactly what you're talking about, which is why when you asked me at the beginning, I said, at the very least, go back to Roe v. Wade and maintain those protections. But
Doors
that
open.
equilibrium was not enough for the right-wing Republican Party. And so, therefore, that's where we're at now. That's the end of story.
And now we have states with no restrictions, and we have states with absolute restrictions.
There was a compromise, and the right wing in this country did not want it. That's it. That's why this is a debate. And you have an individual right that has cost the lives of multiple women across the country. It is increased infant mortality, like I said, at least in Texas, by 15%. And it's, I think it also, and I think it's much harder to measure this, but it subjugates women in this country because it basically says you have less rights to have bodily autonomy, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I agree with that one. Yeah, if as I stated, if I was a woman and I was raped and I was forced to carry the baby, I'd blow my brains out. And so that's why I say up to a certain point, I'm pro-choice. To a certain time period, because I agree, after the baby can live on its own, I don't understand why you kill it.
If there was a way to have the type of restrictions you're talking and have a child be viable, outside of the womb and all of this, but in reality, that's not the way it works. These things don't work the way that you're talking about. The rape exceptions,
and you're gonna to be fair, this issue is the razor's edge. There's no middle. It's one side or the other.
It has to be in the way that it is in practice, and frankly, but these are religious fundamentalists, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop with abortion. They will come for IVF, of course they will.
I would also make the argument that I don't think the left will stop with their ideology either. Both are going to.
Listen. You started this by saying Obama didn't even in case Roe v. Wade in statute. I mean, the left.
My issue with that was Democrats and Republicans both will argue they're for something, but then use it as a wedge issue.
The left was essentially, as a political matter, was fine with Roe v. Wade and Casey, for that matter. I mean, to the extent that there was any talk about abortion rights amongst Democrats and the left, it was to lock it in because the right is coming for this right. And they have now done it. So I mean, the false equivalency you're making here is literally that.
What false equivalency?
Well, the idea that the left is pushing this agenda beyond. No, what's happening is
I'm talking about the general.
There was a compromise.
The right's got their agenda items, the left has their agenda items.
I guess
they're both pushing them endlessly.
Well, I mean, everybody's are political animals, and they want, they have their program for society.
Which is me agreeing with you. You say Republicans won't stop, and I say I agree. On the issues the left cares about, they won't stop either.
Well, that's true. And I think, people make a determination whether they want a religious fundamentalist party to dictate their lives or not.
Or an ideological fundamentalist party.
Well, no, the fundamentalism is an ideology as well. It's just it happens to be born in religion and religious fundamentalism.
Last question, because we've gone way over. I do appreciate you hanging out. Why do you think it is so many former liberals are now leaving the left?
What?
I mean, people switch parties and ideologies.
Not
all
happening the other
time.
way around.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
Wait, what? That's like partially why Joe Biden won. Like, I mean, they're not like those people are not necessarily like leaving the right, but they're just not voting for the Republican candidate. This is the part that Uncle Jank was attacking Sam on Twitter for.
Right-wing pundit who joined a liberal network, like Anna Kasparian announcing she's leaving the left. You know what I mean? Or Dave Rubin.
I mean, listen, if you want to say that these are like the intellectual pillars of,
No, certainly not. I'm saying something's causing an emotional rift that makes people not want to be on the left anymore.
Man, last question. Is Ukraine the worst enemy of America or the world? Ukraine is the greatest enemy of mankind. It's funny when he just like, when he does like the little baby slam on the table too. He's like, Ukraine is the greatest enemy of mankind. We have to apologize to Russia. How dare they? How dare we? Yeah. Let me crack my knuckles and talk about how people are leaving the left and joining the right. It's called money. It is infinitely easier and probably way more welcoming and more rewarding to have an audience of dumb fucks that love you for saying the right things. Okay? If you do not have firmly held convictions that are born out of empathy, and that if you are not willing to take a metric ton of shit, both from the right and also in many instances from people who you thought were your allies, or even directly from the marginalized communities that you speak in defense of, you're not going to have a good time on the left. Okay? Because the left, there's nothing the left loves more than shitting on each other. Okay? Nothing. Nothing at all. I have been called a transphobe by trans people in the past. I have been called a white supremacist by black people in the past. I've been called not sufficiently pro-Palestinian by pro-Palestinian people in the past. I've been called a misogynist by women. I have been called everything. And yet, here I stand before you, still unchanged, unyielding, not changing my perspective even a little bit, because I do not advocate for the civil rights and liberties of marginalized people because I want them to like me. I'm doing it because it's right. Okay? That's how it works. That's what it is. And I think that a lot of people, after years and years and years of doing this, sometimes get annoyed and want to go the more comfortable route. Maybe want to get loved by people, welcomed by people. And the right will always welcome you, no matter what your background is. You can be a Haitian dude, and as long as you are a white supremacist, they'll say you eat cats and dogs, but they'll still welcome you with open arms while you are engaging in the process of doing white supremacist talking points. Okay? And most recently, a terrorist and an anti-Semite. Yeah, that too. Do you think the right would actually welcome Muslim participants? They absolutely would not. Andrew Tate and Sneeko are two recent revert additions to the right. They are both Muslim. And yes, they are not just right-wing, they are far-right. Okay? The right likes a good token, so yes, if you're famous enough, they will accept you. What you described is my issue with the Muslim imams, etc., that endorsed Trump the other day, and then the message that the old Giuliani dude says that terribly inhumane shit about Palestinians and Arabs alike is clear proof they don't give a fuck. Well, I can't speak on the personal ambitions and motivations of like the imams that were hyping up Donald Trump. I would never do such a thing. I think it's fucking gross. Why did I look it up and it says that Andrew Tate faked his conversion to Islam for business in Dubai? That's so funny. I didn't even know that that was the case. Does Chow honestly think the right wouldn't accept you with open arms if you joined the grift? I think it would take some time. But, I mean, look at it this way, dude. Here, I'll give you an example that is like kind of drama, but like it'll help you understand this. Every single person that now is riding with Ethan Klein, every single one of them, from Keemstar to all of these like actual fucking neo-Nazi shitheads, and also even Destiny himself, used to make fun of him all the time. They've called him heinous shit. They've ruined his fucking life. They've made up insane conspiracies about him, right? And now they're all riding for him. Why? Because he has set his crosshairs on an enemy that they despise even more than Ethan. For the switch to like being right wing in one, not even across the board, because I'm not saying that Ethan's like right wing across the board at all, but even a switch in one fucking point is enough for people to be like, dude, you're so based. You're so fucking based. That's it. That's all it takes. That's what I'm saying. It's just like, all it takes is for someone to, even on one issue alone, attack one of their perceived enemies. Okay? Claiming imams supported Trump as such a libtag is literally two anti-Houthi, anti-Iran local preachers. What? No, I didn't say that like I didn't say that like imams were across the board fucking promoting Donald Trump. That chatter asked me about the imams that did. And I'm saying I don't know what their fucking personal motivations are, but I would never do such a thing. I think it's like fucking stupid to do that. Seen the video where they call Ethan basically a useful idiot and how D's crew don't care about anti-Semitism or are only saying it they do to attack you? I haven't seen that video, but it's not shocking to me that it exists. I mean, yeah, these are people who fucking despised Ethan for the longest fucking time. And, you know, now they seemingly love him. And they'll continue to show support as long as he continues to attack me. But the moment he turns back to, you know, someone who's being transphobic and starts calling them out, they're going to fucking relapse and be like, fuck you. Has your live always had this intended for a specific audience? Pop-up warning? Yeah, that's a new thing. They're doing like content warnings if you're talking about politics, which I am. So I think it's valid. They were talking about your Ukraine takes. Did you see the show today? How could I have seen the show today, brother or sister? I'm live. And even if I wasn't, I wouldn't be watching. Do you have a comment for us to why your community is saying they will vote for Trump? I mean, come on, dude. Voy a votar por Donald Trump. Mi gente sale a votar sin miedo a la calle. No hay miedo. No te quedes en la casa. Así que tú no me falles. Oye, sale a votar, vota con los tres de La Habana. Mano para arriba la gente. Mano para arriba. Ciudadana americana. Ay, 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 por Dios. Ahí nada más. Yo voy a votar. That's it. That's all I gotta say, baby. Ain't nothing else. You know what I'm saying? it is pretty funny that you guys are we're watching this shit, but like low key, some dumb fuck is gonna clip this and then and then I'm gonna see this on like every fucking subreddit being like, Hasan is urging people to go out and vote for Donald Trump. You know what I mean? We can't even have fun anymore, you know? Anyway, I got here because we were looking at the fucking right-wing grift.
Listen,
let's finish this.
If you want to say that these are like the intellectual pillars of...
No, certainly not. I'm saying something's causing an emotional rift that makes people not want to be on the left anymore.
Well, I would suggest it's probably cash. I mean,
You think
like
Anna
you said,
Kasparian wanted money?
she said as much as far as I know in the past on TYT.
She said she would make more money by being not leftist?
I don't know if she said that. But I know that...
Wait, that's objectively a correct position. Like, not ascribing that to Anna Kasparian directly, but like saying that like you would make more money as a right winger is correct. Like that's correct. That is factually accurate. And I'm sure Anna has even said that in the past as well. Like, because it is correct. It is a much more comfortable territory to be a part of. You get unimaginable institutional protection unless you are literally straightforward, like recreating. I mean, dude, you know what, actually? You know what? Steven Crowder recreated the George Floyd execution to like belittle it and minimize it and make fun of it. He does like racist ass fucking skits on a regular basis. He's not even fucking funny. He's not even charismatic. And Daily Wire still wanted to give him a $50 million contract. Like there's virtually nothing you can do. I guess the one thing you can't do is just like be anti-Israel. That's like pretty much it. You can be anti-Semitic, but you can't be anti-Israel for the right. Because like, it's not like Candace Owens wasn't fucking anti-Semitic when she got a job at the Daily Wire. She was. She literally fucking got a job at the Daily Wire. She was like saying Hitler wanted to make Germany great, you know? It's not like fucking Ben Shapiro didn't know that when they hired her. They just didn't care. The thing that you can't do is just like be anti-Israel. I think that's it. Or just like openly be a Nazi. I think those are the two things that like get you actual penalties on the right. But beyond that, like you can make inferences. You can literally act. You can say 99% of the Nazi shit. Anna is anti-Israel though. Yeah, that's true. Anna is anti-Israel.
On her
the only reason, for the record, the only reason why like the right doesn't like open overt Nazi rhetoric is because it fucks up the bag for them. Like they would not give a shit about Nazi rhetoric if Americans weren't primed. If Americans weren't like openly primed into thankfully hating Nazis. Like it is not, being a Nazi is like treated as an objectively bad thing in this country. That's like, thank God, it's like one of the last things. So that's the only reason why I think like right wingers don't like the term Nazi, because people will, you know, then people will start catching on that your opinions are so close to Nazis, you know? Ann Coulter regarding tweets regarding Jews, awful, nonsensical. Ann Coulter is also super pro-Israel and has always been so. So I won't lose sleep.
Show on TYT, they have she has complained about not making money. I don't know why she's
still on TYT. Like, aren't they going to lose members who are progressives?
I got to be honest with you. I don't really pay that much attention to like showbiz.
Like, where's a big right-wing pundit who joined a liberal network, like Anna Kasparian announcing she's leaving?
Sam is absolutely right. Anna has said that on Michael Brooks' show talking about Dave Rubin. Here it is. Yeah, it's not shocking because it's correct.
I made it abundantly clear it's very unlikely that any of us are going to get paid millions of dollars. And he was doing this 30-minute-a-week show, which I thought was fine. It didn't seem to me that he really cared too much about politics.
Right.
The person behind that show who really made it happen was his husband, who, like, I love that guy. I mean, I haven't talked to him. I'm sure he doesn't have great thoughts about me, but he was a very hard worker. He was very smart, and he was...
Rest in power, Michael Jamal Brooks. Yeah, I don't know what like Anna's personal motivations are in like how her perspective is shifted on a lot of these issues. I suspect it's probably from, like, again, 20 years of advocacy on the left, on the progressive left, and like constantly getting shitted on by the left, that and maybe like a traumatic incident that probably changed her framework on one particular issue that everybody harped on. And then once you let that reactionary demon in your mind, it's a scary thing. It just like starts overtaking everything else, you know? Like, I think originally it was like crime and crime panic narrative that completely captured her attention. And then people were very annoyed with her for that. And then a lot of the trans panic stuff like also snuck in there. And then people were very mad at her for that as well. And now, wait, hold on. Majority Report tries very hard not to comment on TYT when people bring them up. Yeah, I only bring up TYT to defend Unc. That's my Unc, dude. At this point, Sam Seder is a gross liar. Anna never says she wants to leave the left for money. When he's pressed on it, he claims ignorance. Then why did you lie about it? We've lost subscribers and money because we acted at a principle, something Sam wouldn't understand. I hate to see Unc on Unc violence like this. Here she talked about why. I don't really care. What is this? As someone on the inside with direct knowledge, I can assure you that Cenk is wrong and Sam Seder is an absolute expert in losing money out of principle, lol. Yeah. Like I don't think it's like grifting necessarily. Like, I think Cenk is genuine. I think he genuinely believes the things he says. And I say this as someone who talks to him personally and in private. You know what I mean? Do with that information what you will. Like, I disagree with him certainly. But he is very similar to myself. He's like stubborn to a fault, which I think can be annoying at times when if you don't have the right mindset in your analysis on certain issues. All I'm saying is Cenk's giving is going to go hard this year, dude.